We are going to embark today upon a journey into this class is a class in Chassidus. That's what I'm teaching. That's what I've been teaching for the past several months. It's been my great pleasure and merit to be able to share some information with this august crowd. And so what is Chassidus? Benny asked, what is Chassidus all about? What is the essence of this teaching that we call Chassidus? The title Chassidus doesn't necessarily say it. Certainly it's something that's a more spiritual work, a more spiritual side of Judaism. Some people might call it, Kabbalah light. That might be a practical usage, but what is it really? Back in 1965, the Lubavitcher Rebbe set out to explain in a talk what Chassidus is all about. And a few years later, that talk was published. I think it was 65, it may have been a year or two later. Several years later, about 5 years later, that talk was published in a pamphlet called Inyana Shel Teiras HaChassidus. The idea, what's the big idea of Chassidus? What is it all about? And it is an amazing insight and analysis of what Chassidus is. Very put forth in a very clear way. Not always easy, but definitely one idea flows to the next, and very well put together. And I thought that it would be a wonderful opportunity, a great journey for us to take, to embark upon the study of this work, Inyana Shel Teiras HaChassidus, or as is translated in English, on the essence of Chassidus. So, yes, Yisrael.
Yeah. Welcome back. It's good to see you, Rabbi. A question that I have, first of all, is that in the printed document that you submitted, it has indications of footnotes, but the footnotes, at least in my version as I received it, were not indicated.
I apologize for that. When I send these discourses or these teachings, I basically am copying from a website, and I'm not copying everything. I leave out the footnotes. And if you want to see the footnotes, you're going to have to go to Chabad.org, type in on the essence of Chassidus, and you'll see the footnote number will match up. So I'm sorry for giving you that extra work.
Not a problem. And the other thing that I wanted to ask at the outset, maybe you're going to mention it anyway, but since I have your ear, when we talk about Chassidus in this particular quote-unquote discourse, we're really talking about Chabad Chassidus, are we not?
That's a very good question. Let's put it this way. We're definitely talking about Chabad Chassidus. Are we only talking about Chabad Chassidus? It applies to other forms. So in the world of Chassidim, you have different writings. A very famous work would be Likutei Moharan from Rabbi Nachman of Breslev. And you have other Chassidic works that also are clearly Chassidus. From other streams of the Baal Shem Tov, and there is a similarity between all of them. And I'm gonna have to say that I, with absolute certainty, Yisrael, that I don't know.
Okay. Well, the reason that I posed the question here at the outset is because of the the key pivot point is the Alter Rebbe and his philosophy about dissemination of Hasidus. And I thought that could be a little more exclusive to the Chabad philosophy.
Could well be. Could well be. Although I think a lot of the points that the Rebbe is going to make here, and really ultimately the essential point, could well apply to the general teaching of the Baal Shem Tov. So there's a famous story told of the Baal Shem Tov ascending to the heavenly worlds and speaking to Mashiach, and he asked Mashiach, when is he going to come? And Mashiach responded, when your well springs will spread to the outside. So when the teachings of the Baal Shem Tov would spread to the outside. Now, that could include all teachings, all Chassidus, all Chassiduyos, all branches, possibly. But clearly our focus here is in Chabad Chassidus. That's what I know. That's what I'm going to teach. Other forms of Chassidus are very similar. You know, there's a similarity, and one could go into the details of that. But we're not going to. We're gonna go forward with Inyana Shalteres HaChassidus. So the Rebbe is going to start off by speaking about many benefits and features of Chassidus. He's going to start off by saying that we have this idea, we have another idea, and these are all ideas shared in different generations about what Chassidus is all about, what it is meant to accomplish. And after all of these things, and we're going to go through them hopefully a little quickly, because I want to get to the core piece here, which is where the Rebbe says, but all of those things are ultimately derivatives or benefits of what Chassidus is, but they don't really speak to the essence of Chassidus. What is the essence of Chassidus? And the Rebbe launches into what the essence of Chassidus is all about. And it's a one-word answer. That's the good news. And then the Rebbe goes and subsequently, in subsequent chapters, the Rebbe is going to take the Moda Ani, and the Rebbe is going to explain the Moda Ani on its level of Pshat, the simple meaning, on the level of Remez, what it's alluding to, on the level of Drush, the homiletics, the level of Sod, Kabbalistically what it means, and then according to Chassidus, what Moda Ani means, and the Rebbe is going to show how the meaning of Chassidus is going to augment each of the other explanations. So it's really quite an amazing work here, but we're going to start from the beginning. On page 1, okay, you can always go back and listen to the recording. It's going to be on YouTube. Okay, if you have to leave, as I see Israel, you have to leave for a doctor's appointment. So here we go. Many explanations have heretofore been given concerning the nature of Chassidus and the creative contribution which distinguishes it from those parts of the Torah which had been previously revealed. Okay, so Chassidus has a certain point at which the idea of Chassidus is revealed. And by the way, there's so many different areas of Torah. I mean, let's take the idea of Jewish philosophy. So in the Talmud, do you have any Jewish philosophy? Well, you have tidbits, but you don't find really the formation of Jewish philosophy being formulated. The earliest work would be Reb Sadia Gaon in the 900s, and who lived in Babylon, but more so in my time of Maimonides and a little bit later than that. And then you have the different Jewish philosophers talking about it. So can people say, well, Jewish philosophy is foreign to Jewish study and to Torah? No, it was an idea whose time had not yet come. It wasn't needed, it wasn't necessary, and it wasn't formulated and revealed. And the same can be said regarding Chassidus. Chassidus is certainly found, tidbits of it are found in the Talmud, it's found in Midrashic work, it's found in philosophy and other forms, but It wasn't formulated and revealed until a later generation. But the question here, of course, we're not going into in the history of this, we're really going into what is it? What is it when we're talking about Chassidus? So the Rebbe says that there's the nature of Chassidus. So we're going to start off, what is the nature of Chassidus? What is it? What's unique and special about Chassidus? So number one, in the time of the Baal Shem Tov, the world was in a state of spiritual unconsciousness. And through the revelation of the Baal Shem Tov and the teachings of Chassidus, the world was aroused from this condition. Okay, I think this is from the previous Rebbe. So people, how many Jewish people in the time of the Baal Shem Tov, that would have been the early 1700s, how many people were consciously involved in service of Hashem? In those days, you had the scholars who were very engaged. Were they engaged in the service of Hashem? One could argue one way or the other, but they were engaged in Torah study, that's for sure. And then you had the common folk, which really were very much not engaged, and they were marginalized by the elite. The Baal Shem Tov came and he aroused the spirit of the Jewish people. And thus is brought that the name Yisrael Baal Shem Tov, when somebody faints, you whisper their name into their ears. So God sent the Baal Shem Tov, Yisrael Baal Shem Tov, which was whispered into the ear of the Jewish people, to arouse them from their slumber and to re-engage with the service of God. That's one point of Chassidus. Point number two, a chassid is one who does more than what is required by the letter of the law. This is more or less a legal Talmudic definition of the word chassid. The Talmud talks about a chassid of being somebody who does above and beyond the letter of the law. There's what the law requires, the chassid does more. We're going to move on to number three.
Can I just ask a fast question, please?
Sure.
I'm sorry for interrupting.
Please.
So at the beginning of the class, it was all broken up. Have you sent this already, or will you be sending it to us? I just wanted to know that.
Sent this morning, so you should have received it in your email from Rabbi Smith.
Okay, I didn't see it. All right, I'll go back and I'll look. Thank you.
Number three, here we have quite an idea. And this is the distinctive quality of Chassidus is that one's natural faculties, his natural attributes are transformed into godly faculties. As the Alter Rebbe, the author of the Tanya and Shulchan Aruch, said, the entire of Chassidus is to change the nature of one's attributes. This means to change not only one's natural characteristics themselves, but to change the very nature of your character. Wow. What is that talking about? That's some pretty intense Chassidic work, I will tell you. Just in short, we all know that we have negative traits and we'd like to transform them into positive traits and to eliminate the negative and to supplement the positive traits. But the Rebbe here is saying something totally different, and that is that if you are serving Hashem, you do not suffice with what your natural state is. There is a person who becomes a transformed person. That is a person who has worked on changing who he is. It doesn't make a difference if he changes, you're changing obviously from one to the positive, right? You don't want to change from being a polite person to being an impolite person. That's not the idea here, right? But let me give you an example. So Avraham, what was Avram Avinu, the patriarch Abraham, what was his outstanding quality? Anybody? Achnasas Archim, having guests, right? And it stemmed from his unabounding chesed, kindness, his benevolence. And that was the natural trait of Avraham. How was he tested? What was his greatest test? that he was asked to do something that was 180 degrees from chesed, and offering his son, his only son, right? When somebody is doing something, right, just because they're comfortable with it, because that's my nature, that's not a real service. Where I live in Marin County, I remember when I was a young shliach, I had to look up a new word, which was resonate. Because people were frequently telling me, oh, that resonates with me, Rabbi, or that doesn't resonate with me. So people always, frequently, we things that resonate with me, okay, that's good. If it doesn't resonate with me, then until I finally came to realize, maybe if it doesn't resonate with you, maybe that's exactly what you should be pursuing. Maybe that's exactly what you should be looking into, that which does not resonate with you. That's the only way that transformation is possible. Here's just another quick example. Yaakov Avinu, the patriarch Jacob, his primary quality was the quality of emet, titein emet liYaakov. He gave truth, or he will give truth to Yaakov, to Jacob. That's his primary quality was truth, but yet his test was he had to outsmart and out-trick his brother to be able to receive the blessing from his father. Okay, so just another example of that. And so Chassidus gives us the means to not just change our natural attributes, but to change the very nature of our attributes. We're not really going to be discussing much about that, but so I want to move on. We can just have the whole class on that, but we're going to move on to number 4. Yes, Yisrael, please. You unmute if you want to speak.
The underlying objective one of the underlying objectives is avodas Hashem, and what I've learned is Hashem's expectation is that we will emulate his midos. If we emulate his midos, that we're ultimately fulfilling our obligation to serve Hashem.
That's very true. That's very true. Point number 4. The teachings of Chassidus created the possibility for every person, including one who does not possess a lofty soul and one who has not purified himself, to be able to grasp and comprehend godliness. Well, this idea really resonates with me. So we may be on a limited level in our service and of our purity and our divine connection, but nevertheless, Chassidus, the study of Chassidus, opens up the study of Hashem, that we can come to understand, to perceive godliness. And I think anybody who studied Chassidus for even a limited amount of time, for a few months, for a few years for sure, you start to have a sense and an understanding of God in ways that were heretofore not available. So Chassidus opens up the study of God to every Jewish person can now understand this, and by extension, really every human being. By explaining the ideas of the esoteric part of the Torah and making them accessible to the intellect through examples and analogies corresponding to the faculties and characteristics of the soul, as it's written, from my own soul, from my flesh, rather, I perceive God, Chassidus enabled everyone to comprehend even this part of Torah. Not only can one grasp it with the intelligence found in his godly soul, but also with the intelligence of his intellectual soul. And further, he can comprehend it with the intelligence possessed by his animal soul. I'm not going to go into explaining all of these different levels of soul. Let's just say in brief, God endowed every human being with different operating systems. One is a godly operating system, and that the godly operating system can understand God is shall we say, understood. He also endowed us with an intellect that can understand it, but even the animal soul can come to understand it. So I would say that Chassidus came to make esoteric lessoteric. So things that were normally the study of maybe Kabbalists and people who could have a Kabbalistic understanding now come into a language that the common person can understand and relate to. And this is a quote from Eov, Mi besari echze Elokah, that from my own flesh I can perceive God. So using analogies, Chassidus takes these esoteric ideas, these abstract ideas, and concretizes them, makes them more understandable. Okay, not always perfectly understandable, at least I can say myself studying Chassidus, it's not always perfectly understandable, but definitely accessible and much more understandable. So these are 4 different ideas here, right? A wake-up call. Number 1, a wake-up call. Number 2, going beyond the letter of the law, empowering us to serve God beyond the letter of the law. Number 3, transformation. I would say transformation of self. And number 4, divine accessibility, understanding God, to understand God in a much greater way than we could without the study of Hasidus. These are the 4 ideas that the Rebbe brings here that are broad as to what is the unique quality of what Hasidus is all about. But the Rebbe is not going to suffice with these, as we're about to see. It is self-evident, for reasons which will be later explained, that Hasidus is really one central point. It is a singular and indivisible core, which is not a composite of various particular ideas. Right? This is oftentimes in life. I mean, this is one of the things that the Rebbe, deeper minds in general, have helped us understand. When you can come to understand the core idea, right? Then everything else is going to derive from that core idea and be illuminated by that core idea. Oftentimes people forget what the core idea is. A very good example, as I bring many times, is the example of parenting. The core idea is that a father and a mother have created a child. That's really the core idea of parenthood. So since we have created it, it's an extension of us, and we love it, and we take care of it, and we guide it, and everything. But sometimes parents, for example, I know myself, I can draw from my own examples. Sometimes parenting becomes a power play. Has anybody here ever been involved with being a parent and being involved with the power play with their child? You maybe don't want to admit it, but I have been. Maybe some of you are, I'm sure some of you are better parents than I've been. Parent is involved with the power play. They have forgotten what the core idea of being a parent is. You see. So yes, there has to be discipline, and your child is supposed to listen to you, but forth in a way that your child will. It's not about your power over the child. It's about your love for the child, because this is part of you that you have created. You understand? So the idea, everything else becomes aspect of what we do becomes illuminated. So the Rebbe is saying over here, is Chassidus about arousing, waking up the Jewish people? Is it about going beyond the letter of the law? Is it about self-transformation? Is it about coming to comprehend God? Yes, but let's get to the core idea. We ready? All right. Now, since all of the distinctive qualities mentioned in the preceding definitions, and also numerous other explanations, are different, one must conclude that these qualities do not define and capture the essential nature of the teaching of Chassidus. The fundamental nature of Chassidus is a quintessential point, which is completely abstracted and removed from any particular ideas. However, it is by virtue of this quintessential point that all of the above mentioned special qualities exist and are derived. And now we're gonna have a paragraph here that is going to be a little bit abstract. The Rebbe just said we need an abstract idea. Boy, we're going to get abstract. So if you're saying it's so abstract, yeah, then you got it. It's abstract. But I want to just preface it by speaking about something very important, I think, when we study Chassidus, and that is there's our existence and there's God. There's God that is knowable. Do we know anything about God? Well, for sure. We know that God created a world. He gave us a Torah. His qualities are mentioned in the Talmud and in the Torah itself, and we have many, many different notions of God. So do we know anything about God? The answer is yes. Let me ask you another question. Think carefully. Is God knowable? Anybody? Yes, no? We'll take a vote. We'll decide that way, democratically. Is God knowable? Nobody's unmuting, so I'm not hearing anyone, but we know the right answer, right? The right answer is no, God is not knowable. So we know very different, many different aspects of God, but God himself is above and beyond to such a degree that anything, if you know something, that's not really God, because God is above and beyond existence. Okay? And it's bridging this gap of God being above and beyond, right? And God is not just above and beyond, as I've mentioned many times before. God is not a higher dimension. God is no dimension whatsoever, which makes no sense to us. There is no time, there is no space, there is no dimensionality to God. Okay? But somehow or another, we go from that non-dimensionality to a level of dimension, to a level that ultimately we can relate. But now, with that having been said, let's go on to this next chapter. The next paragraph, rather. This quintessential point of Chassidus, as discussed earlier in the Maimer, which is based on the Maimer of the Rebbe Rashab, is the effusion of a new light from the innermost level of Keter, and yet higher, an effusion from the innermost level of Atik itself, which is the level of the Ein Sof, the infinite, the Ein Sof is the infinite, that is found in a level called Hello. My computer crashed. The speaker is not working. Okay. Hold on just 1 second. And I'm assuming you cannot hear me. Is that true?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I can hear you, Rabbi.
Can you hear me? Your speaker is not working. Please check your connection or use a different speaker. Okay. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay, wonderful. Okay. So this basic idea here. Let's get back to the Reisha Delo Isyada. So the Rebbe described over here many different levels, going from these are all levels. Again, when we're talking about the Spheros, and I'm not gonna do this paragraph with its we could again spend the whole class just on this paragraph, which we're not going to do. Just give me a moment here. I want to open up the discourse on my computer here. So when we're talking about the Sphirot, all of these different levels of godliness, as I started to mention before, really what the whole structure of the Sphirot and the worlds is really how we connect with God, who is totally unknowable, and then God comes into, so to speak, a knowable format. So when we talk about the Ein Sof, the infinite of God, it's referring to God the way that God is unknowable and beyond. And even infinite, the word infinite doesn't really even do it justice, because it's really beyond infinite. Because even infinite is a construct to a certain degree. So we're limited by language, but nevertheless. So how we go from God being totally above and beyond and unknowable into a knowable format. So the level of Keter, the crown, is the level of God at his infinite. And in the crown itself, there's the inner component of the crown, which is called Atik. And that's God's inner will and inner desire, which is unknowable. And then we go to the level called Radla. That's the level that we just spoke about, and hopefully it'll come up soon. I'll rebooting my original computer here. The Radla is a level of Reisha Delo Ityada, the head that is unknowable, that is unknown, the head that cannot be known. So we are really, the Rebbe Rashab said that in the Chassidus, in the world of Chassidus, maybe through the Baal Shem Tov, through the Maggid, through the Alter Rebbe, maybe in other forms of Chassidus as well, there was actually a new revelation of divine light. A new revelation of divine light that was never, the divine light was always there in its source, but it was never revealed into the world. It was an idea whose time had not yet come. And so, what the Rebbe says here is, let me get to the right page. Hopefully we'll soon get back to our regular Zoom session. So it follows then from this very idea, which is elaborated in the mimer from the Rebbe Rashab, that all of the distinctive qualities of Chassidus, which are explained in various places, are ramifications of the essential point. So they are not the essential point itself, but they are rather ramifications of that essential point. For since Chassidus,
Recording in progress.
okay, I think I'm gonna. Apologize for that. I will be getting a new computer soon, God willing, and this should not happen. Just opening up to our discourse here, Essence of Chassidus. Okay. So it follows then from this very idea that was elaborated in the discourse that everything is the ramification of the quintessential point. For since Chassidus is the extension of the state of Ein Sof, it is self-understood that Ein Sof is the essence of Chassidus, and all other particular aspects are only ramifications and derivatives of it. So basically, one of the amazing ideas in Chassidus is this concept of giving us access to this infinite component and this beyond component of God. And understanding that in our daily life and even in our application of Yiddishkeit in our life and connecting us to God on the deepest, most profound level. And the Rebbe is going to expand upon what that means and how that plays out. So number 3, what has been stated above concerning Chassidus also applies in general to all parts of the Torah. For the Torah encompasses all manner of perfection and quality to be found in the world. Okay, so generally, these virtues are divided, as illustrated in man who is a miniature world, into the attributes of intellect and those of emotions. Now, in regard to the latter, to moral behavior and good character, the laws and ethical precepts of Torah contained, for example, in the tractate Avot, Pirkei Avot, are the epitome of goodness and truth. All other systems of morality, however, which men by themselves have contrived, mix together good and evil, truth and falsehood. And furthermore, the source of those portions of good that each one of the systems contains is in the Torah. Okay. Basically, this is kind of an aside, but what the Rebbe is explaining here is that the Torah is the system of perfection, and anything that you're finding any system that you're finding in the world that has good qualities is going to be derived from Torah. Not necessarily that they know it, but it's going to be coming from Torah. And the stuff that isn't from Torah is basically going to be a certain level of falsehood that is contained in the other systems. There's a well-known story about the Rebbe, my sainted father-in-law, Rabbi Yosef Yitzchok Schneerson, which illustrates this point. On one of his journeys, he encountered several men who were arguing and expressing differing opinions about the relationship of Torah to political systems and debating with which system the Torah agreed, which system was in accordance with the Torah. Each one of them brought forth as proof a source from Torah in support of his ideology. When they asked the Rebbe for his opinion on this question, he said, since Torah is the absolute perfection of truth and goodness, it contains within itself all of the best ideas which one may find in any and in all ideologies. The preeminent perfection and superiority of Torah applies not only to moral and political systems. The Torah is furthermore the most elevated and supreme wisdom in relation to all science and systems of knowledge. As it is written, for it is your wisdom and understanding in the eyes of the nation, says that in the Torah, in the book of Deuteronomy. Moreover, not only does Torah encompass all perfection found within the world, but indeed the entire vivifying and sustaining flow of life into the world depends upon minute detail of Torah. So the Rebbe here is going through many different levels of the preeminence of Torah. Number one, the Rebbe says the Torah is going to be the complete system for moral study. So if you find some system of moral study that's not Torah, anything good in it is going to be found in Torah. It's going to be really derived from Torah. And anything that is false, that is not from Torah, is going to be a false element of it. It's really quite a statement. The Rebbe goes from the ethical to the Torah contains all of the information for everything. All the information can be found in the Torah. Now, that's not going to be accessible to me and to you. But to great, the highest scholars of Torah are going to be able to find information in the Torah that, scientific discoveries, for example. There are many stories about this, about how great sages were consulted for various matters and were able to provide medical information. Not just I'm going to pray to God and a miracle is going to happen. Okay, that's happening on a different level. But rather to say, look in such and such an artery. How did the mystic know it? How did the Kabbalist know it? Because he had a higher understanding of the Torah. So the stories with the Rebbe abound in this regard. But now the Rebbe goes to the mystical idea of Torah, which is basically the Torah itself is the divine information that instructs the flow of divine energy into existence to bring about time, space, the universe, and the cosmos, and this little blue dot called Earth, and every human being. So above and beyond everything else, the Torah is that information. There's, if you want to, you're living in a structure, in a home, in a condo, an apartment, a room, and there's electrical wiring, right? There has to be, there's a great wisdom that goes into how exactly to wire a home so the electricity will flow properly and safely to its destination. And that it will be enough energy, won't be too much energy, and you won't get electrocuted when you use it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And one has to have a master's in electronics to be able to, to know and understand all of this and to be able to implement it. That's why you hire an electrician. Don't try doing it yourself. If you want to plug in an extension cord, that's okay. But there's a wisdom into how the energy flows, and you have to understand that wisdom. Well, Kabbalah and Chassidus explain that there's a wisdom behind how the energy flows from the divine into bringing about creation. And that is what is contained in the Torah. And thus it says in the Zohar that the Torah is the blueprint for the world. It is the blueprint, right? That's so the Torah has this type of preeminence. That's what the Rebbe is explaining over here. Nevertheless, all of these profound attributes and superior virtues still do not constitute the essence of what the Torah is about. The essence of the Torah. So what is the essence of the Torah? So notice these are all, again, features and benefits, amazing ideas, the preeminence of the Torah. But what is the essence of the Torah? The essence of the Torah is that it is completely united with the infinite light of the Ein Sof, which is enclosed within it in a perfect and total unity. Meaning that when one is studying the Torah, they have the capacity to unite with the blessed infinite of God, because it is invested within every word, every letter of Torah. Therefore, since all of the worlds are as absolute nothingness in relation to the Ein Sof, so are they also in relation to the Torah. Basically, we're not just saying that the planet Earth is nothing compared to the Torah. We're saying that the entire existence of the universe and the billions of galaxies and trillions of stars are all nothing compared to the Torah. And hence, in this light, it is no praise whatsoever to extol the Torah as the vivifying life force of all worlds, since they are reckoned as nothingness itself. This is a quote from the Medrash that King David was praising the Torah, that the whole world is like nothing compared to the Torah. And God admonished him and said, the Torah is way beyond that. Rather, by virtue of its quintessential point, which is its union with the infinite light of the Ein Sof, the Torah automatically includes every kind of superior virtue and perfection found in the world. And by virtue of this same quintessential point, the Torah is also the world's vivifying flow of life. Did we understand that paragraph? The Rebbe is saying that the essential point of the Torah is its connection and unity with the infinite of God. And it is because of that connection that empowers the Torah to then vivify the world. And since it vivifies the world, it's going to have all the information of the world and of the human being and how the human being should act in the best possible way. You understand? But it all stems from its quintessential point, which is it's united with the Ein Sof. Now, even though, and here the Rebbe was not in these paragraphs, the Rebbe was not talking specifically about Chassidus, and on the contrary, the Rebbe started off by saying that a lot of what we're talking about really is in all aspects of the Torah. Now, even though the quintessential point of all parts of the Torah is that they are united with the light of the Ein Sof, of the infinite of God, in truth, the primary expression of this point is in Chassidus. And as the discourse that the Rebbe was quoting from the Rebbe Rashab, it says that it alone is the effusion of Ein Sof that is found in Radla, meaning that Chassidus is going to be the revelation, really, of this point. So when a person is studying about an ox that has gored a donkey, right, and there are rules regarding that, this is a Mishnah in Baba Kama, this is high, supreme divine wisdom, but you don't know that when you're studying it. Whereas when you study Chassidus, you become aware of the Ein Sof quality in Torah. And this is because there was an effusion from that level to bring about and create this new study, which isn't absolutely new. The kernels of it were found earlier, but a new application, a new really a revelation of an idea that had heretofore not been articulated and expressed. A friend of mine was once sitting on the airplane with a rabbi who was not Chassidic at all. He was part of the Lithuanian bent, who was very much involved with drawing Jews closer to Judaism. And my friend said to him, listen, Rabbi, I've read some of your essays, and you talk about the Jewish soul like the Baal Shem Tov did. You know, you're talking about like the essence of the Jewish soul and how it wants to connect, and this is like truly like what the Baal Shem Tov said and what Chassidus says, but yet you're from the Lithuanian world. And this Lithuanian Torah scholar said back to my friend, he said, that's not Chassidus, that's Torah. And my friend said back to him, that's what we've been trying to say for 300 years. That this is Torah, this is what Torah is about. So this is primarily true of Chassidus because the state of Ein Sof, which is found in all other parts of the Torah, is clothed in a certain form, a form which defines and expresses the nature of that part, the form of that particular part of the Torah, whether it be the plain meaning, the pshat, the remez, hinted, intimated, drush, or sod. Okay, let me explain this paragraph because it's going to be very important for understanding the next, really the rest of the discourse. So let me explain this here. There are 70 faces to the Torah. But generally speaking, there are 4, which is pshat, Pshat is the simple meaning of a verse. So, Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. What is the simple meaning? That God is the creator of everything. He created everything right at the beginning, right? That we were at the beginning of creation and God created everything. Very simple. Then you have the remez. Remez is the level, it's a hint. It's, the level is called allusion, alluding to something else. It says one thing, but it's alluding to another, right? Like sometimes you might ask your wife, my dear, would you like jewelry, would you like some jewelry for your birthday? And the wife says, no, that's too expensive. Don't spend that money on me. So she's saying one thing, and the simple pshat of what she's saying, the simple meaning is no, but what she's saying, if somebody knows, she's alluding to, yes, absolutely buy that for me. So you see, sometimes something could be, it's alluding to something that could be exactly the opposite, right? Like a nod and a wink, right? It's you're saying one thing, but it's alluding to something else. And then Bereshit, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Well, Bereshit bara Elokim, the last letters of that spells out emet, which is truth, and this is called the stamp of God on creation, but it's hinted to, it's alluding to God's stamp of truth in this story. Then you have a level that's called Drush. It's called the homiletics. It's kind of the lessons that can be learned from that. I don't have an example for the Drush on the Bereshit, but then we have the Sod, which is the esoteric. The esoteric is the Bereshit is going to be Barashis, that God created 6 emotions with which to create the world. All right, it's esoteric. But I'm just giving an example that you have these 4 different worlds of interpretation. And each one has its own garment. Each one has its own lingo. Each one is going to have its own frame of reference. Then what the Rebbe is going to be explaining here in the Maimers, that then we have a 5th level, which is Chassidus. And the Rebbe is going to be explaining what Chassidus is. And, since we're on the topic here, this spells, let me draw this over here so you'll see this. The Pshat, Remez, Drush, and Sod, what that spells is Pardes. So Pardes means an orchard, but this is the orchard of Torah study, that there's all of these different layers going on. Now, I want to explain here that, I'm not sure why this is not working. All right, my video isn't working, but that's okay. We can still figure it out. Let me try again. The truth is that we have all of these layers, even with a human being. So I could ask you, why did you come to this class today? Just as time is running short, but any answer that you give me, right? I came to study Torah, came to be with my friends. I find it inspiring. I find it, challenges my mind. There's many different layers, and they're all true. And then, by the way, there's also subconscious layers that we're not even aware of. Maybe there's something that happened, in our youth or last year, or something that we're trying to make whole inside of us that we're not even aware of. Of course, our neshama, we have our divine soul that brought us here. that wants to study Torah. What I'm saying is sometimes people say, what are you talking about? 4 different layers, 4 different ways of understanding Torah. Well, yeah, that's even a human being has that. So the Rebbe is going to explain that then Hasidus comes along and is the 5th level, which is called the quintessential level, which will continue, God willing, next week. Any questions or comments? Thank you all for joining.
Thank you, Rabbi.
You're very welcome.
Thank you, Rabbi. Very
Thank
enlightening.
you. Bye-bye, everyone.
Good.
Thank
Stay
you.
well.
Have a wonderful rest of the day and rest of the week. Bye-bye.